Oh, come on. Good morning. Good morning. Man, I tell you, you better looking on this side than what you think you are, because y'all some good-looking people. You feel good-looking? No, you don't feel good-looking? Act like you feel good-looking. I'm trying to give you something. Get excited. It's a great day. You know, I'm going to tell you a secret, but it's not a secret. The tomb's empty. Do you understand? The tomb's empty. Now, some of you, let me just cover a couple things with you real quick. Let me just talk to you. Let's just get real. Can we get real in here? Can we get real? Have you ever been in a situation where you were planning for something to happen and you get all amped up and you get prepared and get psyched for it and then it doesn't happen? Or have you ever planned on something and it didn't happen like you expected it? Sometimes it might be something bad. You know, you got to get your mind wrapped around it. You sort of get your head psyched up for what's about to happen and all this, and then it doesn't really happen like that. And there's other times you're expecting something good, and you get fired up about it and get good, and then that doesn't happen. Does that happen to anybody else? Does anybody else? I'm going to tell you, it happens to the Atkinson family. Okay, that's my name, Dorsey Atkinson. I'm the pastor here, and it happens to the Atkinson family. For instance, my daughter just told, I come in from the other campus where we have a worship service, and I walk into this service fired up. It's Easter. Everything's going to go great. Woo! I'm excited. And there my grandson is in a diaper and socks. My 1.5-year-old grandson is in diaper and socks and smiling because he's got his little phone or his mama's phone. He's on the phone doing whatever he does on the phone, and I'm like, I thought you held up this little nice Easter suit or outfit yesterday when you were at the house. And Danielle's like, $70 suit, and he threw up all over it this morning. So my grandson was going to show off to you this morning. He was looking good until he barfed, okay? You plan on things don't happen like you expected, right? We planned on having a band and people singing and not having to improvise, but because of sickness and people being out of town, we just had to sing from CDs, which we haven't, I don't know that we've ever done that in the entire history of LifeSpring. Wasn't expecting that when I walked in either. Tell you another one. It's the Atkinson family, let me just tell you. Yesterday, we have our little 1.5-year-old grandson, and we're spending some time with him. And Jody had went out of town or went somewhere, and she called me back. Now, he's working with me in the yard. You understand what working with the 1.5-year-old in the yard is like. You with me? I'm more working watching him, not doing anything. But anyway, so Jody calls and says, hey, we're going to go to Brandon and Teal. What is it, BMT, TM? What's it? Brandon, Minnick, and Teal. It's a nursery and a farm supply place. She said, hey, I'm coming to get you in case, and we're going to go look at bunny rabbit, or we're going to go see the bunny rabbit, or Easter bunny. Said Easter bunny. We're going to go see Easter bunnies. Now, I'm thinking they're talking about that big Easter bunny that you get your picture with at the mall, and I thought that's what we're doing. But oh, no. We're going to the farm supply place. You know what kind of bunnies we're going to see? We're going to see real bunnies. So we take that baby, 1.5-year-old, and he'll be in here in a minute because he's changing clothes right now. But anyway, he take that baby over there, and we go to look at the bunnies, and we're down there playing with the bunnies, and there's white bunnies, and there's black bunnies, and there's black and white bunnies, and there's brown bunnies, and there's bunnies of every kind just moving around in there, right? And he's playing with them all, and my wife says something I thought I'd never heard come out of her mouth before. I want a bunny. Wait a minute, what? I want a bunny. I'm like, listen, we just got all the animals out of the house. We're an empty nest. All our children are out of the house. We've been empty nest for all of 2 months, maybe. And my wife wants a bunny. And I'm like, let's go look at some flowers and plants. They're over here on the side. And so she goes over there to look at flowers and plants. And my other son, Chris, he calls. And when he calls, he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm over here looking at rabbits, bunnies. And he says, bunnies, what are you doing? I said, we brought Case over here. But I said, and I'm thinking it's a joke to my son. I'm like, get this. Your mama said she wants a bunny. He said, what'd she say? I said, she says she wants a bunny. He said, Daddy, you better get her a bunny. I said, what are you talking about? He said, Mama has never asked for a bunny before. She's never asked for anything. You better, Daddy, I'll get the bunny. I'm out of town. I'm in Effingham. I'll get the bunny. In fact, you get him and I'll pay you back for it in case I don't get back in town. I'm like, wait a minute, son, it's not just a bunny. You got to buy a cage because I got a dog cage for, a big lab. You don't put bunnies in there, I don't think, He's like, Daddy, get the bunny. I'm like, you got to buy a cage. You got to buy food. You got to buy, I don't even know what you buy for a bunny because we've never had bunnies before. Water bottles. Well, they were out of water bottles, so you get a dish of it. But anyway, so I got a picture I want you to show. Guess what we did? Now my son says, Daddy, that's not a little cute bunny rabbit. That is a bunny rabbit. And I'm like, well, and look at her. Does she look happy? Now, I have a video, and you're not going to be able to see it, but I took it last night about 12:30, 1 o'clock, while I'm finishing up my sermon. And I go over it the night before. But anyway, so I'm in the bedroom, and I walk in there, and I hear the TV playing. I go in there thinking Jody's on her phone or watching the TV, and she's got this bunny on her chest, rubbing that thing, and just like that. And I look at her, and she's smiling. Now, I went to that farm supply place to look at bunnies with a 1.5-year-old to make him happy. I didn't expect to come away with a bunny. I went there looking for one thing, and I found something totally different that wasn't even on my radar. You got me? Welcome to Easter. Welcome to the story of Easter. You see, today we celebrate a story happening in the Bible, an event happening in the Bible that people were thinking one thing, and they got something totally different. The story of Easter today, people all over the world that weren't in the Atkinson household got up and went to a sunrise service. Now, I got up before sunrise, and I'll explain this to you. I text my family. We got a group text. You ever had a group text where you got like 8 or 10 in your group? And my mama is in that group text. And I'm not even worried about saying this because she ain't going to figure out how to watch this on TV anyway. And I text and I sent a picture of that video that I made at 1:30 or 12:30 last night of Jody holding that little rabbit and all like that. Sent it to all my kids, all the in-laws, all the significant, everybody. I sent it to everybody. Her mama, my mama. Before my alarm goes off this morning, my phone rings. And my mama says, I just pick it up because it's like, hello? What's wrong with Brian? And what's this picture about? Is he pregnant? What's got to do with the rabbit? She's thinking a rabbit has died and that my other son is going to have another child or something. I'm like, and I'm waking up to this like at 5 something. I'm like, Mama, what are you talking about? And then my alarm starts going off. So I try to cut the alarm off, and I hung up on my mama. So then I'm trying to turn the light on to call her back, and I'm calling her back, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And she goes through this whole spiel telling me everything about, she has a flip phone. That's all we can handle right now. And there's something that come up there that's a picture or something about a rabbit or says something about a rabbit, and I see Brian's name on there. I said, Mama, it's a group text. Brian starts with a B, and it's in alphabetical order. That's the first one you're going to see. You're not going to see the rest. I said, just talk to your other nephews in North Carolina, and they'll show you how to see the video, but everything's all right. I said, why are you calling me, sir? Well, I was getting up to go to sunrise service, and I just thought I'd check and find out what's going on. And you understand? I did not expect for my Sunday morning to start out like this. I did not expect to be getting called by my mama. I didn't expect to come in on Sunday morning and see my grandson in a diaper and not his little Easter suit. I didn't expect some of the things, but what I got, or what I'm getting, is something entirely different than what I came for. The story of Easter revolves around Jesus Christ, his teacher, this Son of God, the divine nature of God in a human form coming to earth, teaching, loving, and serving people, showing them how we can live a life that is a life that is not based on this life, but on a life to come. And because of his teaching, and because of his love, and because of going against the grain of the world at that time, the people of that time were worried about change so much that they coerced the Roman government to beat him and whip him to a bloody mess, and then nail him on a cross where he died. And on that cross he died, he went into a tomb. And then comes Easter morning. And that's the story I want to read you this morning. It's found in Mark chapter 16, and I'm going to read it all the way through, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. So here it goes. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Do you remember? Jesus was crucified on a day of the week that was the eve of one of the biggest religious holidays that also coincided with the biggest religious Sabbath that there was. And because he died 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and the rituals or the Sabbath began at sundown, they hurriedly took his body off the cross. They wrapped him in some clothes. Interesting. I mean, this just pops in my head. They wrapped him in swaddling clothes when he was a baby. Now they wrap him in white cloth because that's all they had. And they take him off the cross, wrap him in that cloth, and some men who were willing to stand up, not his disciples, they'd all ran away. These men have a borrowed tomb, and they take him hurriedly, and they put him in there. The women that were there at the cross watched this, and they saw where they put him. And then the Romans, because of being persuaded by the Jews, are thinking that this rebellion will keep going because somebody's going to steal his body, put guards there to protect the tomb and rolled a stone in front of it so you couldn't get to it. And so they hurriedly put him in the tomb. So he didn't really get to do the rituals and the things that would be accustomed to a Jewish burial. Wouldn't even do the things that you would do and accustomed in our burial. We have funerals here in our society. We have things that happen, and there's certain things that happen with the bodies that our culture and our religion or our faith teaches us. And they did this. They didn't get a chance to do this. So these women were going to take care of this that morning. So very early on the first day of the week, just after the sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll the stone away from the entrance to the tomb?" But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You are looking for Jesus, the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him? But go tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he had told you." This is the Easter story. This is a story where they went looking for one thing and they found something they weren't expecting. They prepared for one thing, but when they got there, it wasn't what they expected. See, the empty tomb, not only on this day, on the day we celebrate Jesus' resurrection, so what's called Easter, the empty tomb represents and reminds us of so many things to so many people. Let's look at the first part. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so they could go to anoint Jesus' body. So this tomb reminds me that coming to the tomb, we must face our fears. See, the tomb represented death. It represented something that we all don't want to deal with. This to them was a death of a son, of a death of a close friend, a death of a teacher, a death of someone who inspired you and you looked up to. And this death, this tomb represented that death. It represented not just the death of a person, and that's hard enough, but the death of dreams and hopes and aspiration that revolved around the teaching of this gentleman called Jesus. And so this tomb represented death. I recently went back just this Friday to do a funeral at the old church I used to be at. Large crowd there. And an interesting thing that I saw at that funeral was not what I saw, but what I didn't see. You know, there's people who because of their fear of death, because of their fear of the hurt and the pain that happens around the thing of death, they don't go to funerals. They don't go see loved ones. They stay away from them because it reminds them that their life may be coming to an end one day, so they don't go. But then there's others who you don't expect to see who come out of love and honor for the person or for the family. See, we got to face our fears. And the tomb reminds me that we got to face our fears. The tomb represents or reminds me of the difficult things in life that we've got to face up to sometimes. It represents the difficult things, the necessary things, the messy things we must do sometimes when we face our fears. These women weren't going to have a holiday. These women were going to prepare a body for burial. They had collected spices, and what they were going to do was going to touch a dead body. They were going to wipe the dried blood off of Jesus as gently and tenderly as they could. They were going to anoint his body with oil and spices so that he wouldn't offend people with his odor as he decayed. And they were preparing him for this, and they're doing the messy stuff. I saw another woman at the funeral I was at the other day, and Jody and I was talking to her, and we knew she was a beautician, and she had done this lady's hair for years. Have you ever haven't been to a funeral before and people say, "Oh, they look so good," in the coffin? You know, they look good. Do you ever think about who does the hair? There's beauticians that do that. That go and they tenderly wash the hair and fix the hair and do the things that you and I creep us out. That prepares that body for the resting that it'll be in for the rest of eternity. We have to face our fears, and they were going to do this, and they were facing these things that are difficult that nobody wants to do. And I just want to tell you this: his closest 12 disciples ain't there. The ones who he said, "I'll build a church on you, you're going to be the rock." The ones he said, "You're my beloved," they are not there. The ones that would be the future leaders of the church that you're in right now wasn't there. Maybe they were afraid and couldn't face their fears. Maybe they were afraid of what was going to happen to them if they came. Maybe they were afraid of I don't know what, or maybe they were just confused. But they didn't come to the tomb. But these women did. They felt inside of them, this isn't right. And my fear of the Romans, my fear of what people will say, my fear of touching a dead body, my fear is not going to stop me from coming to do what's right. See, for some people coming to church, there's such a fear to coming here. They have to fear, people fear their past. They fear what they did last night. They fear all of these things, of their failures, their insecurities, they're all these things of what church was or what people from the church have done to them. And but to be here, they have to face those fears. And they come in here. Next it says, very early in the morning, the first day of the week after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb?" See, here's what the empty tomb also represents to me, or reminds me. My perceived limitations are no excuse for avoiding the tomb. My and your perceived limitations are no excuse for avoiding the tomb. See, they made preparations. They got the Easter suits out. They got the clothes bought for the kids. They got all the stuff done. And then the child throws up on the stuff. I'm just not going. I'm not going to have my baby there in just a diaper and socks. See, it's limited. Our limitations would keep many people from coming. I can't get my wife up. I can't get my kids up. I can't get this up. I can't do this. So I'm just not coming. It's so far to drive. It's so much to do. And these limitations, I'm just too bad. You don't know what's going on. You don't know. I just cussed somebody out a while ago at the stoplight before I got here. I can't come here. I need to turn around. Me and my wife got in a fight, got in an argument before we got here. And people turn around. See, but your perceived limitations are no excuse for avoiding tomb. See, these women, now I just want you to think about it. You got, what time of the morning did they come? Before sunrise? And it says that the day before that was the Sabbath, and they were Jewish. How many stores you think were open to sell spices on the Sabbath? None. They had to pull this stuff together. They had to pull this together with no stores, no anything open. They had to go and get this stuff together. They had to make plans. You think you just wake up before sunrise? By the way, they ain't got alarm clocks. You thought about that? How do you wake up before sunrise with no alarm clock? The roosters don't even crow then. Somebody must have stayed up. They made preparations. They got ready. They made preparations. They got spices together. The three of them got together. They wasn't a phone or wasn't able to text. They had to talk some way or another face to face and get together and say, somebody needs to do something. I just don't think those disciples are going to do it. I don't think Peter and John are going to do it. I don't care if they're going to do it. I am not going to let my Savior be in this state. I loved him. And I cared for him. And so they started going. And as they're going, they realize who's going to move the rock. Now at that point, they could have easily said, well, we don't have any people with us. Let's go back home. We're not going to go. We're not going to finish this task. God will give us credit for attempting to do this. God will be pleased with us, for we got on the road, we carried the spices, and we got there and we got to talking, well, the two, who's going to roll the stone away? And when we don't have the stone, well, then we'll go back. We'll come next year. We'll come later. We'll come another time. We'll get. You with me? Their limitations didn't stop them from going to the tomb. And neither should you. Neither should your limitations stop you from trusting God to do what He's called you to do, no matter how many times you've failed before. No matter how many times that you struggled before. Marcus, if you need to turn that heat up, you can turn them up. I see people chilling. So then it continues. But when they looked up, they saw the stone was very large, which was very large, had been rolled away. Did you get that? When they got there, when they didn't let their limitations stop them and they got there, the thing that they worried the most about was already taken care of. The thing was moved. Now, I just want to ask you something. And I don't know, maybe you guys thought about this before. But here's my question. Did Jesus need the stone moved to get out of the tomb? Did Jesus, in the shroud, God rose him from the dead and he woke up from the dead and took his towel off or took the shroud off, folded it up. The scripture says it's folded up and placed in a certain place. And did he get up? And did he go over there? And did he sit down? Wonder when Gabriel's going to get here and move that rock so I can get out of here. Or maybe it's going to be Michael and the archangel. My father, I got stuff to do. When we're going to move that stone, I got to get out of here. Did Jesus need the stone moved to get out? Who was the stone? Who was the stone moved for? If they couldn't move the stone, then they wouldn't have saw that it was empty. And God knows they needed to see that it was empty. If they'd have got there, they'd have thought he's still in there. They'd have thought, well, we're never going to get a chance to put spices on his body. They're coming there for one reason, and they find out something different. See, that tomb and that empty tomb means so much because you wouldn't have seen the empty tomb. We wouldn't know because, let me just say this. The other people found out about the empty tomb because they left and went and told somebody. It wasn't because they were there. And so they're there. So the empty tomb, listen to what it says. As they entered the tomb, now they get to the tomb, they see the stone roll away. As they get to the tomb, they enter the tomb and they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed, which I would be too. If I see anything in a graveyard sitting there that looks like a ghost, I'm alarmed. Angel or whatever, I'm alarmed. Now you guys might be comfortable with that. Maybe you're used to seeing that stuff. But I'm telling you, if I go in a mortuary and something looks like a ghost, I am alarmed. And I'm not sure that that thing can stop me from being alarmed by saying, don't be alarmed. But whatever this was, this angelic thing, this angelic being said, don't be alarmed. And then he calls them out. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth. Notice you got those spices in your hand. Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him? But go and tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee, and there you will see him just as he told you. See, the empty tomb reminds me of something else. That I have to come to the tomb myself to see the truth. I have to see it for myself. Many of us in this world are still looking for that truth. And we keep coming to church. And we keep coming to our friends who are church people. And I'm telling you, when we go to those places, some of them are still a sealed up tomb and they think there's death in there. And they don't know that there's life because the tomb's empty. So I've got to come myself. You can't do it for me. They can go and tell Peter and John, but at some point in time, you've got to go see for yourself that tomb is empty. And Jesus is really risen. See, the tomb reminds me, I got to do math. Or I got to do the math. The tomb reminds me that I have to do the math. You know what the math is, don't you? 1 plus 1 equals, Alana, that was a time you were supposed to yell out, girl. That was the one you had. So, doing the math, 1 plus 1 equals, 2. One more time, 1 plus 1 equals, 2. So here's what I found out. Jesus died, plus Jesus is not here, means the tomb's empty. 1 plus 1 equals the empty tomb. The tomb is empty. Plus Jesus' words that said this would happen equals Jesus is risen. When I do the math, Jesus Christ has died, Jesus Christ has risen, equals Jesus Christ will come again. I'm just doing the math. That's what that tomb means to me. And if Jesus Christ will come again, and I have a belief in Jesus as my Savior, then that equals the good news. And the good news is that Christ died for us while we were yet sinners, and that proves that He loves us. And that proves that I have the opportunity to be forgiven. Not for the one thing I did, for everything that I've done and will do. See, the tomb reminds me I have to do the math. I have to come and see it, and I have to do the math, and it reminds me. The tomb, I came looking for one thing. I came expecting one thing. I came to church just to be at church on a Sunday because it's Easter. I just came to be here for a moment. I had no idea that He was alive. Or maybe I've forgotten that He was alive. I faced my fears and got here. I went ahead and came on in the door. I went ahead and got on in the door, and I come on in here and sit down, and I went ahead and I sit here in this tomb time and time again because this isn't my first Easter in the church. This is my umpteenth time at the church. But maybe I didn't do the math. And then the last thing the tomb reminds me about is I have to be a messenger of that good news. They go and they see and they hear this good news. They do the math and realize Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. They realize all of these things. And then they're told, now you go tell somebody. And you go tell those people that's too scared to come here. You tell those people who've been there time and time again, who were there when it was easy, that when it's tough, we need you there now even more. And you tell those ones that feel the worst about themselves, like Peter, who's denied Jesus in the worst possible ways. He said, come on back. See, that's what the tomb represents to me. That's what this Easter morning represents to me. What will it represent to you from now on?